Well, good morning. We're glad that everyone came out to listen to us talk about this new law, Iryna's law, in House Bill 307. This is a tragedy in our city, but it is one of the tragedies that has been highlighted all over the U.S. But it's hard to have those conversations with the other parents who've lost their children just to the same violence that Iryna lost her life. And we believe that the only reason that this caught national attention is because it was caught on video and it was displayed across the United States. And our local politicians at that time saw it was a political agenda, or they could highlight her as a refugee and not an immigrant. And this is why they created Iryna's law. I'm going to be very brief about this, and we can get into discussions later. This law will cause our detention center numbers to rise. We will have more people staying inside a detention center at a longer stay than normally, because it attacks the new bond referendum or the bond referendum, and it attacks also the discretion that the magistrates and the judge has on releasing people. The behind the scenes thing that you did not see is that our magistrates were attacked violently, verbally, when I say violently, on social media, and they lived in fear for many days. And we took additional measures to protect them because of the violent nature of social media and parts of other media, and also just the violence that they received just personally. And so they live in fear now, and I have to say that because for an entire day, we had to talk to the magistrates on how to live safely, how to travel safely, and in the middle of all of that, they were concerned after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, because they said to me, well, what if they shoot me because of this? And so they're going to be more cautious and reluctant to allow people to be released. And we know that the law has now provided other guidelines for certain people not to be released. So it will increase our capacity here at the detention center. Looking at the numbers, our capacity has been the highest since I've been sheriff. I think today we're at 619, and we have seen it as high as 1650 or 1620 in the high mid 1600s. And so that's unexpected. Now, when we're talking about the length of stay, don't get confused, the length of stay and the average stay. Because when you're talking about the average stay, of course, people say, well, the average stay is so-and-so. Well, I can tell you that people who have been housed here inside the Mecklenburg County Detention Center have been waiting to go to trial for a minimum of 4 to 5 years. And we still have those numbers of they've been waiting 4 or 5 years. And so when we're talking about that, those people are going to be remaining here on top of the other issues that we have. So when we're talking about Iryna's law, the main thing that everybody talks about is mental health, mental health, mental health, and this young man's mental health at the time that he was arrested. Well, looking at our numbers, we had 618 people diagnosed with the same thing that he was diagnosed with: schizophrenia and a bipolar disorder. But yet he was released like everybody else was released. We have to understand that the release comes after everyone has met all the conditions of their bond. You hear some politicians say Sheriff McFadden is releasing them. Sheriff McFadden is releasing them. He's releasing them. Well, we only release people after we receive an order from a judicial official ordering us to release that person after they have met all the conditions of their bond. So it's not up to the sheriff solely to release people. Of course, we do release them after we receive the notification, but we don't release them on what we believe they should be released on. So we don't make sure we get that clear. And so when we're talking about mental health, you should be proud of your sheriff's office. Most of you all say, well, the sheriff's office does this and that. Well, we started mental health 1 year after I got here. So in 2019, we opened the first behavioral health in North Carolina inside of a detention center. After that year passed, we opened the detention center for women for behavioral health. So we've been dealing with behavioral health way before Iryna's laws and way before everybody thought that it was a popular conversation. So in 2018, we had a pod for men. 2020, in the middle of COVID, we opened a female pod for females. And so if you haven't kept up with it, we have a program called the RISE program. In 2022, North Carolina came to me and said, Sheriff, we want you to experiment with a RISE program, restoring individually, safely, and effectively back to where they can proceed to court. Because you're going to hear the term incapable to proceed, ITP, and you may see that, ITP, incapable to proceed. That means a defendant cannot assist his lawyer in his preparation to go to court. So they remain here. Because of that, we created a RISE program where we had a 25-bed unit that takes care, we believe that takes care of that problem, because we are restoring people back to where they can proceed in court. That program has also been successful, so successful that the state of North Carolina came back to the sheriff's office again and said, Sheriff McFadden, can we increase the RISE program? And we did. So the new RISE program that we have now, and I call it RISE 5.0, the sheriff's office here, Mecklenburg County, now services 36 other sheriff's offices in the state. We only have 100 sheriff's offices in the state of North Carolina. So Mecklenburg County will now have the ability to service 36 other sheriff's offices across the state when we talk about mental health capacity. What does that mean? A sheriff's office may say, well, because of 307, and like I said to the city council, because of 307, if I was another sheriff's office, I would say, well, sure, this is not going to cause me a problem, because all I'm going to do is send my people to Mecklenburg County, because we have a contract with them that I can send my people to Mecklenburg County for services of mental health. So 36 other sheriff's offices. There were 2 other sheriff's offices that also supposed to be with me, Pitt County and Wake County, which I am the western part of North Carolina. Wake is the middle part, and Pitt is the eastern part. And so Pitt County is only going to service anyone that's in the Cherry Hospital community. Is only going to provide services in Wake County. That means anybody in Wake County can come to the Wake County facility and get the same services that they would get here in the Mecklenburg County. So we're dealing with 36 other counties. This weekend I looked at people asking, other sheriff's office asking how can they be a part of it, which we will take them if they're in the 36 county, but also during that time I saw where Orange County, which is near Raleigh, Wake County, asking can we provide for them. So what does that mean in a nutshell? That we're going to be bombarded with a lot of requests for us to service other people. Will that put a strain on my staff? Absolutely. Will it put a mental strain on my staff? Absolutely. Why? Because we're now going to be dealing with a much more difficult population when we're talking about mental health, on top of the other population of the people who are arrested for robbery, rape, and murder. All these people are still going to be housed here at the detention center. So when people say, well, is that going to cause a problem for your staff? Of course it is. Why? Because my staff is now going to be subject to having to deal with people with much more mental health problems than we had in the past. Or we're going to be dealing with families who will not understand why their loved ones are not being released. On top of all of that, House Bill 307 did not bring us any resources, and they did not bring any funding. And so when these lawmakers in Raleigh make these bills and Senate bills, the only thing that we are asking for them to do to allow us to have a seat at the table and have a voice. And sure, they will use the word, we spoke to Mr. Caldwell with the North Carolina Sheriff Association. Well, Mr. Caldwell is an absolutely great individual, and I admire him greatly. But I think talking to the actual sheriffs that will be working with these actual people will be better to say, what will you face, how will you face it, and what do you need? And I think that would have been a better conversation. And as we always say, communication, collaboration, and cooperation is all that we're asking. We cannot back away from this bill. We challenge this bill. We take these challenges head on. My staff have talked, but I know that we are better prepared than most sheriff's offices in the state. Why? Because we have been dealing with this since 2019, mental health. And we are the example to follow. But when you have no funding to help you all, and all of a sudden now we're going to have a recruiting problem, and here's why we have a recruiting problem. Because everybody's recruiting at this time. Every agency in Mecklenburg County, all 6, including CMPD is across the street, we're all recruiting from the same pool, and it's competitive. People may go to Union County or Cabarrus County or Rowan County for different pay, and not to deal with as many patients that they have. We are the largest facility in North and South Carolina. And so we have the largest problems because we have the largest capacity. But we will take on this challenge, but simply having us to talk or hear our voice at the table would have been better. But no funding for something that we are mandated to do now is difficult, and it's a difficult pill to swallow when you talk to my staff. But my staff is ready to take on the challenge, and I'm sure that we will be successful. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. Next, we're going to have Major Iryna in Detention Center, and he's going to be talking about population growth and just the state of the detention center.
Good morning. I'm just going to talk about the population a little bit. Right now, it's about an 18% increase from the same time last year. Our numbers, like the sheriff said, was 1619 today, which means that we also have about 97 people on stack of bunks. Some of the operational challenges we have is more residents place pressure on the housing units. We need to provide more medical care, more food, more laundry, and all the other daily operations. Overcrowding also reduces efficiency and raises the risk of incidents, making it harder to maintain order. As far as morale goes, everyone that's working here still has good morale, but when the resident population rises, staff demand rise with it. We are without additional personnel, the burdens falls on those that are already here. So right now, of course, we're doing mandatory overtime, but this will probably end in January. And it causes fatigue and stress, which can erode morale, which is why recognition, support, and clear communication are critical to maintaining good morale. And that's one of the reasons why we're always recruiting people to help get better people in here and to make it a little bit better. Safety and security, overcrowding increases tension among residents, which can also escalate into conflict. So we teach our staff to remain vigilant, but vigilance alone is not enough. We need funding for more training, technology, to meet these challenges head on. Community connections, the detention center reflects the community it serves. As diversity grows, so do the needs of those in our custody. Our mission is not only to contain, but also rehabilitate and prepare individuals to re-enter society. In closing, I would just like to say, we do have a population growth, and that's inevitable, but our response defines our leadership by advocating for resources, embracing innovation, and supporting one another. We will ensure the facility remains safe, fair, and resilient. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Major R. Abey. He's going to be discussing safety concerns, as well as just some of the operational delays.
Good afternoon. Major Robert Abey, oversee arrest processing and operations and arrest processing. What we can expect in arrest processing are pretty significant delays. So HB 307 has added responsibilities, increased the responsibilities of the magistrates, and they already have a workload that's pretty cumbersome as it is, so the delays are going to affect us. Arrest processing is a processing facility. We're not meant to hold a lot of people at one time. So when it backs up in there, it gets dangerous. We're short-staffed as well. Staffing is a concern. As Major Duras said, morale is always going to be a concern. But we're dealing with people at a very volatile time. And when you put people that we're dealing at a volatile time, and a lot of them in a little area, it can get dangerous. It can get dangerous for our staff, it can get dangerous for them. So arrest processing, the overcrowding is going to be a concern for us. And unfortunately, the magistrates, they can't do anything about their workload. We can't do anything about their workload, but they're just going to have to work through it. In addition, arrest processing, the delays in arrest processing can hinder time-sensitive cases such as DWIs, driving while impaired cases. Those are very time-sensitive for various reasons. Our goal is to get them in and out of arrest processing as quickly as possible, and if there's delays, we have issues with that. We have concerns with that. We don't want to see cases get thrown out in court on somebody that was arrested for a DWI simply because it just took too long to process them. With that being said, the portion of HB 307, we're fortunate when it deals with mental health, has actually been postponed till December 2026. When that goes into place, we're looking at a whole different nightmare when it comes to arresting, officers arresting people coming into the facility. That's going to require them to testify due to the behavior of the person, considering their mental health. And basically, the magistrates are going to have to determine whether they need to go for an involuntary commitment or go to the hospital to be checked out for the mental health. We're talking about significant delays in the process when that takes place. Our main goal in arrest processing, honestly, is to get our officers, our deputies back out on the streets, back in their zones, back in their divisions for emergency response, for public safety. And we can't do that if they're in arrest processing waiting to see the magistrate, unfortunately. I do think this is going to be a negative impact on our sheriff's office. I also think there'll be a negative impacts on other agencies that we experience, our other user agencies, especially those ones that are smaller. Because when they only have a few people on their shifts, on their divisions, in their divisions, and they're sitting in arrest process and arrest, they're not on the streets where they really should be. That's all I have.
And finally, we will hear from Tanisha Pakanayeva, Mental Health Director. She's going to be talking about what it is her division does, just preparations for the backlogs, as well as treatment options.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. As Sarah said, Tanisha Pakanayeva, Mental Health Director here at the facility. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, and I currently oversee 11 other professionals in the provision of the mental health services here. Some of the major functions of our department include crisis intervention services, so suicide or safety watches. We are responding to facility emergencies. Our team also completes initial assessments for diagnostic and treatment purposes. We are doing involuntary commitment petitions and testimonies before the magistrate. And then we provide a number of other support services. So that could be for PREA-related claims, that's the Prison Rape Elimination Act, follow-up for our pregnant and postpartum residents, follow-up for residents on our behavioral health special needs list. So those are individuals who are considered severe and persistently mentally ill. We conduct what we call special management housing rounds, in addition to a number of other things. As the sheriff said, our company oversees the behavioral health unit, so that is a 90-day mental health program that residents can come into. And then in October of this year, we did begin providing support in our medication-assisted treatment program, or the MAT program, by way of screenings, counseling, peer support, and pre-release planning. So our department does a wide range of things here in the facility. At present, with the numbers as is, approximately 40% of our residents present with a mental health diagnosis. And I would say that that number is low. Not every resident that comes into the facility is capable of saying, hey, I consent to treatment and is willing to engage with us. So there are currently people here in our facility that won't engage, but our team is very much aware that they have mental health needs. So if we do experience a population increase as a result of House Bill 307, our department is definitely going to be impacted. I can foresee larger caseloads for our clinicians and more demands on them. Right now, we have 3 full-time facility clinicians, and they do a lot on the day-to-day, so we can just see that going up. We anticipate a potential rise in the types of crises and the number of crises we're responding to in the facility. And then we do anticipate some backlogs and delays. So right now, we try to afford our residents timely mental health care within certain deadlines, but an increase in population would mean that it may take a little bit longer for us to get to those things. Of greatest concern for our department is how we will manage individuals who come into the facility and they're not able to engage with our on-site treatment team in a meaningful way. So right now we are relying on the involuntary commitment process to support and service those residents, but right now we have issues with that process. So our community hospitals are often limited with bed space. Our community hospitals do not have the ability to house and treat individuals with violent histories and charges. So that's already a challenge. So I can only imagine with larger numbers here how that challenge is going to grow. Over the last 60 days, our department has done what we can as best as we can to prepare for some changes that may arise as a result of the new bill. That has included just educating our staff about what changes could come about and making sure that they are prepared. We have prepared our staff who work on what we call the program side, so they are in the behavioral health units, making sure that they are trained and prepared to work on our facility side, so responding to crises, helping with initial assessments. We've gone ahead and onboarded what we call PRN or as-needed employees, so to come in and support on the days when our caseloads are higher, and they'll continue to do so in the future. And we've gone ahead and onboarded an assistant mental director to come in and supervise and support in many of these areas. And we are continuing conversations with our community hospitals. So we have one community hospital that we've been working closely with since my time here, and we've started conversations about how we can enhance our collaborative efforts. We're going to continue those conversations with other hospitals and facilities to see how we can adjust to these changes. Ultimately, it's our goal to provide our residents with quality mental health care and services that is timely and of community standard. I think what we've done thus far, the action steps that we've taken, have prepared us as best as we can. And in the weeks to come, we're going to be looking at data to just see what our numbers look like. We're going to be taking a look at any emerging trends to make sure we can adjust as needed and remain committed to this goal. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing, and now I'll open up the floor to questions.
Sheriff, you mentioned those 36 other counties that use your services. If you see an uptick in caseloads, will you have to cancel some of those contracts?
Well, the contracts, from my understanding, is a 25-bed capacity, so they will probably go on a waiting list. We haven't got to that conversation yet, but that is one I want to write down. And they'll probably be on the waiting list at the time.
The people who come from other counties will be on a waiting list.
Yes, I mean, once we reach that capacity, which is 25, and then the time that they're going to complete the services, they will probably go on a waiting list, because we can't take more than 25.
Sheriff, why help 36 counties if you're already having staffing problems and
Well,
this added stress?
Everybody has staffing problems. We're not unique. But when the state sees that a program like ours have worked to help people throughout the state, we believe that all of the other sheriffs would have joined in and said, well, if Sheriff McFadden takes the western part, they take the middle and the eastern part, we believe that they would have helped. But what do we do if we don't help? And so having that program and knowing that were successful, we took it on, not knowing that the lawmakers in Raleigh was going to do anything like they did with House Bill 307. I think they should have taken in consideration that we are already dealing with this and we're already tackling this, come to us and say, how can we better manage this, or how can we better collaborate with this, would have been a great thing. And then we probably would have came up with funding and better solutions. But we have already was committed to this before House Bill 307. So the question should be, knowing that, why would they create a House bill like this to put another burden on us?
So House Bill 307 has been around for a week now, and given that, do you have any numbers or data that show the real impact here at the detention center so far?
Well, if we are increasing by 18%, or we can say the numbers have went up from 1525 to 1618, that is an increase. The last time I saw it, in the middle of the week, and we wanted to look at it, it went up 118 residents more than we normally would have.
So you correlate the 18% increase to Iryna's law?
Yes.
Sheriff, you mentioned more resources and funding are needed. Can you kind of specifically target maybe like one area you would need to be, I guess, targeted?
Money, funded. And resource is a word that everybody uses. Well, resources. Okay, well, we're talking about funding right now. And funding and more resources would be that if you have some people that could help us clinically, the state should have looked at that and brought that to us. But funding is it. You're not talking about creating something with no funding. You want us to build a team, but with no funding. So just build a team and then just walk away from it. So that's what I would say. Resources where we could ask, can clinicians come in, help us? When they saw it, now they have a a knee-jerk reaction, say, okay, stop, we will do it in 2026. But that has, you have already seen the ship sail. What we mean, the fear has already been with the magistrates and the judicial system that be careful of who you release. And that's going to be honest. Be careful who you release. I'm not going to be subjected. If I release somebody, then I'm going to be targeted. And who you see, they target the sheriff at anybody being released. I don't release them. I technically release them, but after receiving an order from a judge, we do. So when we're talking about resources, let's have the conversation and say, what do you need? The number one resources we need now is funding. Because the beds, you know, when you have more people, it's still gonna, you still have to house them, feed them, and service them.
What would you put that funding toward, right away, first top item?
Staffing. Better pay for staffing, more staffing for my facility. Staffing.
Do you have an idea of how many people currently in the jail are either waiting for determination of capacity of whether they continue in trial or currently receiving treatment to try and reach the capacity continue in trial? Do we have a guess on that number? You said like 40% have a mental health diagnosis, but obviously within the court system there's kind of a distinction.
Yeah, I don't have that information at this time.
But I mean, you think about if maybe staffing would, back to your question, maybe staffing would bring somebody in to evaluate all those people inside a detention center. But again, you're going to have to talking about where they are willing to engage with us, willing to engage in saying, yes, I have a problem. No, I don't have a problem. That would be a resource that we'd ask to bring some people in and let them go through and say, well, Mecklenburg County has, 60 people that need, treatment. That would be another resource that we would ask for.
That 18% is year over year, correct?
Excuse me?
The 18% number, that's from last year to this year.
That would be,
Yes, ma'am.
So that would, in this law, it's only been in place a week. So are there other factors that are driving that population increase?
poverty, mental health, education, nutrition, time of year. Everybody knows this time of year, people commit crimes. Why? Because they're at the end wits. They need stuff. Homeless, not homeless, people that are houseless, sometimes they commit the petty crime to come inside. Mental health, people promise each other things by this year. Stress, divorce, SNAP, immigration, all of this causes us to go into a crisis. And so crisis causes crime also, and those crime come inside.
Major, I know you were talking about the arrest processing. On average, like in this past week since this new law has taken effect, how many people are in that small area at a time on average? I mean, are we talking 20 to 30 people packed in there? And can you give the public some insight on how arrest processing works? Somebody's arrested, brought in, what goes on there? I know we're gonna see it, but.
Yeah, arrest processing, it kind of varies. I mean, it depends on the day, time of the week, weather affects it. I mean, it's been kind of rainy, so we're a little slow today, which is good. So yeah, we can get a lot. Sometimes we can have almost all the seats filled. It just depends. It fluctuates. With arrest processing, basically they come in, they're going to get evaluated by a nurse to make sure that they're okay to be there. Right. Our first and foremost concern is some safety. They'll get evaluated by a nurse. They get searched. We make sure they don't have any items coming into our facility they're not supposed to have, and they get processed, fingerprinted, photographed. And our main goal is obviously to get them to the magistrate, get them to a judicial official so they can get their conditions of release expeditiously. So once they get their conditions of release, then we know what to go move forward through there. What we have noticed, and you talk about the trends since it's been, we've actually noticed the increase since September after the event. Looking at the trend lines of how many people what we call booked is when they come through the entire process and they actually get dressed in and taken upstairs to the detention center. That's called being booked. A lot of them before would get released by the magistrate. We expect the magistrates not to release a lot of people due to the law changes. Right? They're not going to.
This was before the law changed.
This was before the law changed. But since the incident in September, we've noticed compared to last year, about a 10% increase every single month since September of more people actually being booked and sent upstairs. So we're already seeing that trend increasing since September, and the law's only been in place for about a week.
And could you explain, the CMPD is telling us crime is going down year over year, so it wouldn't make sense to a normal resident. It'd be hard to understand why the jail population is going up when crime is going down.
I can chime in on that a little bit for what I know. also got to realize too, our population, we've had people that's been in there more than this year. Like the sheriff said, we've had some people that have been in there for a long period of time, extended period of time. So that we're waiting on these court cases to get handled in the courthouse as well. So when it just keeps stacking up and we can't get them out, the population is going to go up.
And you spoke earlier, when going through the arrest processing, the arresting officer is with that individual throughout the entire process.
They are with them up until the magistrate if it's an individual arrest. If it's a warrant arrest, again, our main goal is to get them out on the streets. We process the warrant arrest form. They come in, we make sure they're good. We send them back out, so we do our part to increase public safety. But if it is a visual arrest, they have to testify to the magistrate. They'll be there up until that point. Once they testify to the magistrate and we get the conditions released, and the officer's free to leave.
If somebody is booked, how long is the process? Let's say they have some kind of mental health crisis, and they want to see a counselor. What does that process look like for them? Do they have to fill out a form? How long do they have to wait?
I'm probably going to defer that to Nabia when it comes to that. But when they do come through our system, they're not in the arrest processing very long, a couple hours after they, basically before they get booked after they see the magistrate.
So right in the detention center in our AP division, we have a nursing team that is stationed down there. So depending on what the presenting issue is for the resident determines how quickly they'd be seen by us. So some people are seen emergent, like right in that moment. And oftentimes if we see that, those individuals are going to be somebody that we IVC or petition for IVC. And then after that, it could be like a routine follow-up. So it all depends on what the presenting need is.
Sheriff McFadden, we got ourselves in this situation after a stabbing on the light rail. We had another one on Friday. Of course, I'm wondering if you have any concerns of what this new latest one will bring, because when we look at the guy's background, he's been deported twice, and now he's in your jail on a detainer.
Well, as we know, immigration is the federal board's issue. Why don't we ask them? He's been deported twice under the civil, deportation process. You probably need to ask them, why haven't they charged him with a criminal aspect of this offense? He's here now. Why don't they start the proceeding of, I can't tell them what to do. I know people say, well, sure, if you can't tell them what to do, I can't. I can only suggest what they do. A detainer through House Bill HB 13 versus a criminal charge of re-entry after deportation, which would be my best choice if you had to ask them that. Am I concerned about that? We're still looking into that. I don't know if the person was actually on the light rail or off the light rail, but simply just mentioning the light rail make it to be national news. When anyone is stabbed in my city, hurt, shot, killed, yes, I'm concerned. I have to be concerned because it's in the city that, I am a part of. We are concerned about it, but we also need to be honest about the immigration part of it. We want to blame the sheriff. Well, you deported this person twice. Does that really work? Or has it worked? And what will you do after that? I saw all of the newscasts this weekend about this incident. And so we're prepared to listen, and we're prepared to receive any documentation that DHS and ICE presents to us. But I would recommend them to look at it from a criminal aspect instead of the civil aspect, because we can see that it causes us issues if it's only a civil aspect on deportation.
Has Oscar Solorzano ever been an inmate in your jail before with this instance?
And I believe that is no.
Quick follow-up. So it did happen. Police say it happened on the actual light rail, but I wonder your thoughts, knowing that we had Border Patrol here for a few weeks, just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and they claimed that they were going after previous felons. He has convictions in the past. Do you have any thoughts on why he wasn't picked up then?
Well, I think you have to ask Border Patrol, and if you get in touch with them, that will be almost a miracle in talking with them, because we asked them to collaborate with us here. Let me make sure we get the distinction. We have a better communication with ICE than we have with Border Patrol. Border Patrol never came and talked to us, even though they were 500 yards away from here doing an interview with CNN right across the street. We don't know. So what we would have liked to do, and people believe that to make these cities safer, and these are the questions I think you should ask them. You know, from my reading this weekend, a lot of these people being picked up do not have a criminal record. If they want to make Mecklenburg County safer, we have what they call a repository of warrants, and they may show you that today. We have hundreds of warrants. If you want to say, let's take your first 100 most violent criminals that are wanted, and we search for them in a combined effort with DHS and ICE, that would have been a better move. Simply coming to terrorize the city and taking away people that we don't even know who they are. We don't know anything about the numbers, but we always shift the sheriff about the sheriff. Well, I think this is the time to ask ICE, can you provide us who was arrested and provide us if they had a criminal history or if they are targeted? When they say targeted, it is very clever by using, they have target areas. That means Central Avenue and South Boulevard. Let's make no mistake about it. Those are our heavily Hispanic areas. So South Boulevard and Central Avenue, they targeted those areas. Who they took away, we do not know to this day. They did not bring anybody to the Mecklenburg County Detention Center.
Secretary Noem, in her press release, says that this county has a history of not cooperating with ICE. What is your response to that, and will you honor this detainer for Oscar Solorzano?
Okay, let me go with the cooperation first. We cooperate with DHS, we cooperate with any federal law enforcement agency if they want to cooperate with us. North Carolina General Statute, which I love to quote, 162.62 mandates us to cooperate with ICE. ICE is using, or she is using, or someone is using what I have classified as a word salad. They will not tell you that I am not following the law. I am not cooperating to what they want us to follow. And as I said about this young man who is here now, under House Bill 318, we're going to follow those guidelines. And those guidelines say whatever they say, and then within that 48 hours, we're going to notify them, and then ICE can do what they want to do. What I suggest them to do, which would be what I would like to see them do, is actually file criminal charges for re-entering after deportation. That would be the greatest part to satisfy me.
Moving forward, could we please keep our questions to House Bill 307?
Sheriff,
Go ahead.
Sheriff, there are people who, after this latest light rail staff and the one before, do want changes and do want to feel safer. If House Bill 307 isn't the solution, and if it's not going to make people feel safer, what kind of policy changes could Raleigh bring that would do that?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to having I want things to be safer. I want people to be safer. But I think talking together to find out the best solution would be the best thing to do at this time. Simply creating something that has caused controversial issues among law enforcement, you should say, well, Sheriff, we want to talk to you. We want to talk to the largest counties. We want to talk to all sheriffs. I think that is what we're asking to see if what can better fit to make these cities safe. Simply saying we want to make them safer. After 2 weeks here, I don't think anybody felt safe after Border Patrol left. So I think that having these conversations say, what can we do together instead of saying, what can you do, Sheriff? I have my ideas, they have their ideas. I think coming together and having a conversation is the best idea, and being collaborative to push out the best policy and the best avenue to combat what we're doing. To throw Chief Patterson, as they say, throw her a bone. Her first day on the job, she called me and said, we want to work together. And she had an assembly of leaders, I think, this past Thursday. That is what we're asking for, a start. Everybody believes that they have the answer in Raleigh, but who's never been in Charlotte.
Have Destin Hall or Phil Berger ever called you?
Never have called me. Never, and we're looking for that conversation. And the same thing with the FOP. You know, they're saying they want to talk to us. Well, my office has never moved. So we need to have these conversations. The reason I said I want to distinguish the difference between ICE and BP is because when I sent them a letter on October 1st, and said, I need this from you. They came and had a meeting on the 17th of October. We came to agreement. This is how you could operate if you choose to within the Mecklenburg County Courthouse grounds or the detention center, and they have been great on going through this protocol as we laid it out. That's all we're asking, to have a conversation.
You've reached out to Phil Berger and Dustin Hall.
Absolutely. And I go to Raleigh and stand in the chambers and we can't meet, and stand beside their doors and can't meet.
Can I follow up with this, just to try and cut through some stuff on the booking versus processing percentages going up since August? Since the mental health aspect of the law hasn't taken effect and won't take effect until next year, and the minutia of essentially what would cause somebody to stay booked as opposed to where they were before, is what's causing the biggest jail influx of people, essentially magistrates, afraid of releasing the wrong people? Can someone just tell me if that's the case or not?
I don't think that we can, well, I'm gonna say, I don't think we can just put it on the mat, and we're not gonna just put it on the mat. It's a system. It's a system. It's a system that they are here. We have people in crisis. We don't understand that. We have people been waiting to go to trial for a number of reasons. Mental health is a part of it. Poverty is a part of it. People don't have the resources to actually bond their loved ones out, and places don't have to go. People are released from Mecklenburg, people are released from prison every week and brought to Mecklenburg County. A couple of days ago, I met a gentleman on the sidewalk, and he needed a place to go. Being out of prison after 1 year, we sent him to our resource center that give him all the things that we could possibly give, but he is still homeless inside of Mecklenburg County. Is he going to commit a crime? The likelihood, yes. Why? Poverty, food, nutrition, and housing. So he may do things just to feel comfortable, and he will come inside our detention center, and then again, it becomes a poverty issue where nobody can bond him out, and he remains here. Those are the things that that data may not show all the time.
You talked about the 97 with, I don't know if that number was right, the stackable bunks, stackable beds. How does that work? You maybe can make more beds, but you can't necessarily make more space. So how does that look in the population?
Okay, not quite have your question.
So you said that there's people on stackable beds or
Yes.
or bunks, like
Yes.
almost 100, right? Something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
97.
Yes.
And so you can make more beds, but you can't necessarily make more space. So what kind of problems does that present, having so many people on these stackable beds?
Well, when you have that many people on the stackable bed, it affects morale, of course.
Can you come up there, please?
It affects the morale, it causes tension, but, it's workable. The building is a building. You can't make the building bigger, but you can always put stacker bunks to give people more space. One of the other things is that we didn't talk about was, when we talk about why is the population increasing, when people get sentenced, they don't always leave the detention center, right? Because the Department of Bureau of Prisons and stuff is overcrowded. So right now we have, I think, 37 people on the backlog just to go back to prison that already been sentenced, right? We also receive people from the prisons here for writs, right? So we have people coming here and we have people that should leave. If you take last week, for instance, 3 of the most dangerous people in Mecklenburg County got sentenced to prison a week before last, but because the prisons were overcrowded, we couldn't even send them out. So it's a lot of things that affect the amount of people that are here at the detention center. It's not just the new arrestees, but it's people that are supposed to go to prison, people that come back for writs. There's a lot of things that go into that.
Major, for the arrest processing, for people who may have never even stepped foot in this building, can you just give us an example of, on average, how much longer it is taking to process someone now that the law has taken effect versus before? I know there's more paperwork, there's more stuff and history to go through for the magistrate, but is it 30 more minutes? Is it an hour more?
We're talking about a week's time. I honestly haven't looked at the numbers to see what that's affected. Again, like I said, with the weather, we've had a couple of days where we've been entirely slow because of the rain and the cold. And a lot of people just don't get out and they don't get arrested. That's something that we'll have to look at over time. From what I've seen, the magistrates are doing their best to get people through at this point in time. We really won't know that until we really get hit on one of those days where a few of those days where it just keeps coming and it happens. So.
Sheriff, could you speak a little bit about, I'm just curious if you would be in favor of this bill if it did come with the funding that you are speaking of, or are you more concerned with the actual policy of it?
I would be more in favor of a bill if I'm at the table to hear what the sheriff has to, the input, and what my staff will face. I would be more in favor of that. Instead of baking a cake and then want to serve it to us, I would be in favor of a bill if I'm at the table and I'm going to say, this could happen, that could happen. Have you considered this and have you considered that? That is what I want.
Sheriff, have you had staff tell you that because of this going into effect that maybe they no longer see themselves wanting to be in law enforcement?
No, I've had concern from the magistrates because when we place whatever content we out into the media, it brings fear. And so we're no matter who we are as professionals, we are still human. And we have families, and we go to the grocery store, and we go to the mall, and we go to have dinner. And so fear is real, and I think everybody should know that now after what happened a couple of weeks ago. And so, no, I haven't had a staff member to say, I'm not doing this. Like I said before, we kind of dealt with a lot of this when I got here about mental health. It's just that people are going to stay longer. And when people stay longer, they become agitated. And when they become agitated, their families become agitated. And then they call us with more demands. And then that call has to be received by one of my staff in the middle of another crisis. And so you have to think about this. This is a facility that have 1,600 people who have been in a crisis. And they're probably going to remain in that crisis because they are here. And their family into a crisis. Holidays bring crisis also. But I haven't had one staff member said, I'm going to leave because of that. And I hope that they won't. And I can just hope that they won't.
Inside of a pod, how many deputies are there at any given time?
There's one person as a supervisor of anywhere from 10 to 50 people. And I'll tell you, I have seen a couple of staff members are amazing. Well, a lot of my staff is amazing, but when you walk into a pod of 54 men, and there's a female sitting behind that desk comfortably because she's running her pod well, that gives me great joy. That's a person I want to train the other people to come in. And I think that we have to look at this from the perspective of, as you say, as my staff. How many people that my staff is going to be working with on one person and have to take care of 50 people? That is a task. But they do a great job. And I always commend these young ladies because when I walk in a pod and they are, as we say, they are running their pod, that gives me great comfort. And those people that I hope will be the trainers of the new people to come in and help us be more staff than we are now. Thank you.
So does the jail have like a firm, like max capacity, and then are you concerned, I know we're on the weekend, but are you concerned that as, this law stays in effect, that will
I'm concerned every day.
put over the top?
I wish I didn't have but 100 people here. Anything, you think about it, anything is a crisis here. I don't want to say, well, when we get 1,600, I'm going to panic. I panic every day when the numbers go up to 5 because that's somebody else that we have to deal with. There's no magic number. And when we talk about the stacker bunk, you will hear people say they're sleeping on the floor. They're not sleeping on the floor. And then we have to talk about classification, which we didn't touch on. Everybody just doesn't come in, and just because we got a bed open over here, we can send that person to that bed. No, it is called classifications. So because we can't put co-defendants together, or we can't put rivalry gangs together. So all of that, you have to look at it as classification. We have to be careful of who we put together. Believe it or not, sometimes we have to say, if you're from the west side, you can't put the east side together. Why? Because there could be beefing. High school's beef. And so we have to be very careful, and that becomes what we call classification, and that's why it takes a while before these people are moved to their pod areas, the selected pod areas.
We can take 2 more questions.
So with these, lawmakers put this bill forward saying these stricter, pretrial release will kind of maybe stop the revolving door of crime. Like, do you think that is what effect it will be, or what other consequences maybe do they not consider when they?
I don't think anybody has a solution to stop the revolving door of crime. We can say that candidly. The revolving door last night, I think that we received 57 people yesterday, and we released 33. So that is still a revolving door. It is always going to be a revolving door of crime. People are going to come. I have people that I now see, sadly, I talked to a family this weekend with a concern about a loved one here, and I asked some questions about this young man, and unfortunately, I thought it was somebody that I coached in Little League football, but it wasn't. It's actually his son. And so that's a revolving door for me. Now I'm seeing the second generation come. And so then who takes on that mission? The community should take on some of that mission to help decrease who comes inside our detention center. What does that look like? And so when we're talking about when lawmakers make these laws, the only thing that we are asking for to allow us to be heard at the table, whether you agree with it or not, at least you heard it, at least you consider it, and if you take it into account, then let's move forward.
I'll ask one more question if nobody else has it. You kind of mentioned a little bit of, I'm wondering, with these stricter release laws, like with the secured bonds, unsecured, like, do you think it will really target kind of those repeat offenders, or you kind of mentioned kind of in passing, like, get people that are poor? Like, who do you think is
I think that it will significantly harm the people who are less fortunate because of funding, fine and fees, because we don't even think about when a person is here, they still have to pay a lawyer and they still have to go to court. And when a parent comes to court, he or she's gonna lose time from work. If you not familiar with our commissary, mothers come here and go to a machine and daily put what they call money on their books. So if a family may put $200 a week because their loved one said, I need this or I need that. And so all of that creates a deeper pocket for poverty. And then when you're talking about poverty, they still have to go to court. They still have to pay a lawyer and all of these fundings. And so this is the revolving door that nobody knows how to fix. So funding, imagine fine and fees. And if you just heard, we just had, the state doesn't have the ability to accept these people who have been convicted for crimes often. It is a waiting list. It's a 30 waiting list. And so then the big story was these two young men are convicted of a crime. They are still here. How much attention is that inside a detention center? How much attention is that? And you don't think my staff says, well, these two people have just killed someone. You know, we have those people upstairs. You know, even though they have not been convicted, you know, they are charged with it. All of that goes into our daily functions as a sheriff's office. Thank you.
This concludes our press conference. Our detention staff will escort you all for the tour. Thank you so much.